Pauline Hanson, the One Nation leader, joining us live. Good to talk to you again, Pauline. I've got to ask you off the top there, there are reports that you might be moving to the coast and running in the seat of Capricornia. Can you confirm that or rule it out?
No, I'm not going to confirm, and I'm not ruling out anything, Chris. As I said to you, I'm contemplating standing for a lower house seat, and I haven't made that determination as yet, and I'm not going to say what I'm doing at this stage. So we'll see what happens. It's 2 years outside the election.
Would you contemplate moving away from that lovely part of the world we're speaking to you in now, though?
It's going to be a hard decision to make with that one, Chris, but I have to look at where do I want to take the party. I've made it quite clear I want One Nation to be government, and I will do what I need to do for us to achieve that aim, because I am determined to get rid of the Labor, Greens, Teal government.
Well, if you're serious about being a party of government, then you have to go to the lower house, right? You have to take that risk and go to the lower house, because you're not going to sit back and watch, David Farley or Barnaby Joyce be Prime Minister and you can just guide them like a puppet meister from the Senate.
Well, Chris, you remember there was John Gorton, who was Prime Minister from the Senate for 3 months. And please correct me if I'm wrong. Does the Constitution state that you have to be a Prime Minister in the lower house? It doesn't. So anyway, that's something to look at as well.
Well, he got the leadership and then quickly shifted down there, but you wouldn't want to risk that, would you?
Yeah. No, what I'm saying is the Constitution doesn't specify that you must be in the lower house to be Prime Minister of the country. So it's never been challenged really beforehand. Only John Gorton did take on the Prime Ministership, and then he moved from the upper house to the lower house. But Chris, like I said, I'm not ruling anything in or out at this stage. We've got a long way to go yet, and I've got a Victorian state election plus a New South Wales state election to go as well. So everything's on the cards.
All right, well, speaking about people leading parties from the upper house, let's go to South Australia, where Cory Bernardi has made his maiden speech in the upper house, where he leads your 3 candidates there and 4 in the 3 members there and 4 members in the lower house. Here's a little bit of what he had to say.
But let me begin by welcoming you all to the land of my ancestors, and by recognising the leaders past, present and emerging that have all played a role in building our great state and nation. Their stories are all very different, but without them, none of this would be possible for me.
That was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek welcome to country, wasn't it?
I think it was, but I really liked it. First time I've heard it. I haven't had a chance to listen to his speech at all, so that was a surprise to me to listen to it, and I thought, go Cory.
Go Cory. All right, well, his ancestors, I know there's an Italian background, and his dad was very successful Italian. I think he was a migrant, but I don't know how far back the rest of his family goes. I'll show you some more of his maiden speech here. Is he talking about the issues of gender and children?
Media are silent while the government allows doctors to mutilate children in the name of gender-affirming care. To me, it's sheer madness that can be countered with a common-sense analogy.
Yeah, he's always been very clear-cut on some of these issues. He's obviously going to take them up with a gusto in South Australia.
Well, good on him, because I've said exactly the same on the floor of Parliament. So has Malcolm Roberts and my other senators. So we're all on the same page. That's what I love about One Nation. We don't hold back. We say what the majority of the public are actually thinking, but we've got the guts to actually say it. So I got the right person to represent South Australia for One Nation.
I tell you what, a bloke many, many years ago, many decades ago, I was a young reporter and covered the South Australian upper house, where it was very, very hard to stay awake. I think it's going to be a lot more interesting with Cory Bernardi up there.
Yep.
It'll be a bit more lively.
Wait till you hear from Carlos Quambero.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Now,
well, Carlos Quambero is giving his main speech tomorrow.
All right.
And listen for his.
We'll keep an eye on those. They're available on the South Australian Parliamentary website for those who might be interested. Let's go to this exchange on SBS last night, where they talking about the impact of One Nation.
Your family came to Australia about 40 years ago from Fiji. Yeah. What do you think about One Nation?
I reckon she's fantastic, to be honest with you. Someone who loves her own country so much, that's not racist. You have to have pride in your country. And we came from Fiji as well, and we came to this blessed country that we call home now. I call myself Australian, I don't call myself Fijian or Indian. I've put a Australian flagpole in my front yard, and you come to this country, embrace the Australian way of living, or, you know what, you stay where you are.
So that was the good news for Pauline and One Nation, but then there was this.
Ray, as a Muslim woman, how do you feel about the rise in One Nation's popularity?
I think that the rise of One Nation's popularity is also proportionate to the rise of Islamophobia in the Australian context. But I'd also go further and acknowledge that Islamophobia and institutionalised Islamophobia has been a problem in Australia for decades.
Some good and bad there for you, Pauline. How do you plead to this charge of inflaming Islamophobia?
I think it's absolute rubbish because they've been pushing their own agenda in Australia. And if you question it, or you question Sharia law or halal or anything else, you're Islamophobic. Which this is happening all around the world. If you read up and understand, this should happen in Britain, it's happening in Canada, and it's happened in Denmark, Germany, France, and all the rest of it. So you can't question anything. Chris, you summed it up in your own opening statements that you made about what's happening with the Royal Commission into anti-Semitism, that you can't question anything because they'll throw back the tag, as they did to me for many years, calling me a racist, which wasn't the case. So don't be held back in your views or have an opinion or having a say because they want to throw tags at you. If we don't question this and debate the issue, heaven help us as a country where we are headed. And I want to thank that Australian who is proud of being an Australian. That's what I've said. You'd be surprised the number of migrants out there who do fully support me and are proud to be in this country. And I thank you for your comments. But the media and those individuals with their own agenda will constantly try and pull me down and not interested in what the new migrants or those that have been here for many years want to embrace this country and embrace what I stand for, as the fact is we are all Australians under the one law and the one flag.
Pauline, thanks again for joining us from Scenic Rim. Enjoy that area before you move to the coast, hey?
Cheers, Chris.
Pauline Hanson, One Nation, she might have to move.
Today's interview with Pauline Hanson gives us a fascinating snapshot of where Australian politics could be heading in the months ahead. Whether you agree with One Nation or not, there's no denying that the party is attracting attention and forcing conversations that the major parties can no longer ignore. One of the biggest takeaways from this interview is Hanson's confidence about the future of One Nation. She openly discussed the possibility of contesting a lower house seat and made it clear that her ambition extends far beyond simply holding Senate positions. Her goal, according to her own words, is to turn One Nation into a genuine party of government rather than a protest movement operating from the sidelines. The discussion also highlighted the growing influence of One Nation in South Australia following the election of former Liberal Senator Cory Bernardi under the party banner. Hanson praised Bernardi's direct style and argued that Australians are increasingly looking for politicians who are willing to challenge established political thinking rather than simply repeat party talking points. Another major theme was national identity and social cohesion. Hanson argued that many Australians, including migrants, support a stronger emphasis on Australian values and civic unity. Supporters view this as a positive message about national pride and integration, while critics argue that such discussions can sometimes risk excluding minority communities. Regardless of where people stand, these issues continue to generate significant debate across the country. Economic concerns were also front and center. Hanson criticized government spending, high taxation, rising living costs, and housing affordability pressures. She argued that governments should focus more heavily on reducing bureaucracy, supporting small businesses, expanding domestic industries, and lowering barriers to investment. These arguments are likely to resonate with Australians who feel financially squeezed by inflation, mortgage repayments, and rising household expenses. Housing policy was another important topic. Hanson suggested that reducing migration levels, limiting foreign ownership of residential property, and cutting taxes associated with home construction could help improve affordability for Australians seeking to enter the property market. Supporters see these proposals as practical solutions, while critics question whether such measures alone would be enough to solve Australia's housing challenges. The interview also touched on debates surrounding cultural issues, freedom of speech, and public discussion. Hanson argued that Australians should be able to debate controversial topics without fear of being labelled or dismissed. At the same time, opponents maintain that public debate must remain respectful and avoid targeting particular communities. Striking the right balance between open discussion and social harmony remains one of the defining challenges of modern democratic politics. Perhaps the most significant political message from this interview is that voter frustration appears to be creating opportunities for smaller parties outside the traditional Labour coalition contest. Many Australians are looking for alternatives, and parties like One Nation are seeking to position themselves as vehicles for political change. Whether that momentum continues or fades will ultimately depend on voters. But one thing is clear: Australian politics is becoming increasingly competitive, and voices outside the major parties are playing a larger role in shaping the national conversation than they have for many years.